I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn it on with just a touch, baby. I look around and since it's cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your heart touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. Cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road and overdrive, baby. Hit the road and overdrive. The city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your heart touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. But when I let you go this time, I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. Feel free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody.
Just feel free indeed. Welcome back to the Two-Tone Talk podcast. I'm your host, Brad Steele. The Tennessee Titans. 2 games left. Just 2? Yep, just 2. At Houston this weekend. Titans getting ready to make their final stand on the 2023 season against a couple of division foes. And I've already seen on Twitter and other places, I told you it was going to happen. There are some Titans fans who, they're not thinking about the draft. They're not thinking about draft position. They want to play spoiler. They want to play Grinch to the Houston Texans or the Jacksonville Jaguars or both over these last 2 weeks, because Texans and Jags are both in a 3-way tie atop the AFC South, and the Titans could really screw things up for one of them or both of them over these last 2 weeks. But I will say, even if they do that, you're now doing a favor for the Indianapolis Colts. Do you really want to do that? You're help in trying to mess up the season for one of these other two teams. You're going to be helping someone else, because somebody's got to win the dang division. The division, which, by the way, I think may now be once again viewed as the worst division in the NFL. Let me think. The NFC South is bad. The Panthers, obviously. The Saints are over there. They're kind of mid. The Falcons are mid. The Bucs look good. But right now, the AFC South, everybody in that division looks flat out bad, you know? And whoever wins that division is likely going to be hosting the Cleveland Browns in the first round of the playoffs. That doesn't sound fun. That doesn't sound fun. I wouldn't want to play the Browns and Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco right now. So, let's talk about the potential, expected now, return of Will Levis to the lineup on Sunday against the Texans. Will Levis got hurt against the Texans last week. He obviously missed the Seahawks game. And let's recall the fact that at first it was an injury that looked quite bad. It was an injury that looked like he might have broken something. I mean, at first, this hit that Will Levis took where he got hurt in overtime against Houston, it looked bad. And he avoided catastrophe, ended up being a sprain. And now he appears to be ready to go. And we all assumed that we would not see Will Levis for the rest of this season. We all assumed, hey, why take the chance? Why take the chance in putting Will Levis back out there? We assumed the injury was at least bad enough that it would require him to probably play it safe and miss the rest of this season. But apparently, Will Levis is expected to play. We are going to get C.J. Stroud versus Will Levis for the first time ever this Sunday in Houston. And a lot of people are concerned that this is a bad decision to put Will Levis back in there behind this offensive line, because you dodged a bullet the first time. You dodged a bullet because it looked like he got hurt bad, but it wasn't bad. Looked bad, but it wasn't bad. And now you're going to risk putting him back out there behind this offensive line 2 more times? Some fans are concerned, and consider me one of those people. I'm a little worried, because you want this guy to be the franchise quarterback going forward. You want this guy to come back. And you may sit there and say, well, even if he gets hurt, I mean, you've got the entire offseason to recover, but you guys know as well as I do, if it's a bad enough injury, it can change the entire trajectory of this guy's career. I mean, how many guys can you think of, not just quarterbacks, but any position, who they were looking good and everything was going great, and then that injury? Hey, how about Marcus Mariota with the Titans? I mean, his second year with the Titans, he was playing pretty well. People were excited about him, and at the end of the season, he broke his leg. He was never the same again. And we can say it now, we were in denial of it then, but after Marcus broke his leg at the end of his sophomore season, he was never the same again. I just don't want to see Will Levis, because that's the first thing that came to my mind when he got hurt a couple of weeks ago. Oh God, what if this is one of those injuries? What if this is one of those injuries that he's never the same again? And we dodged a bullet. And I mean, obviously, if the Titans were in playoff contention, it's a no-brainer you put him back in. Of course. If the Titans were in playoff contention under these circumstances, yes, he's got to be in there. But considering the fact that we done been eliminated from playoff contention for a couple weeks now, some people say, is it the smartest thing to put him back out there behind this offensive line? And I agree. Yes, I'm going to be worried every time he gets hit. I'm going to be worried every time I see somebody rounding that left tackle, bearing down on him. I'm going to be nervous. But I will say this. There is another side of this argument, the side that I'm sure Mike Vrabel is taking, and I totally agree with this too. It may sound like I'm playing both sides of the fence here, but just hear me out. There's one side that says, listen, there is no substitute for in-game reps for a young quarterback like this. There's no substitute. You can train all off season, and that's great. You can go to training camp in the summer. That's great. You can practice in the fall. You can have the preseason games. That's all great. But there is no substitute for what Will Levis could get out of these last two games, which is meaningful in-game reps against two teams who are trying to make the playoffs, against two teams who are going to be playing hard because they're in a three-way tie at the top of their division with 2 games left. You're going to get Houston's best. You're going to get Jacksonville's best. And some would say, hey, that's invaluable for a guy like Will Levis, a young quarterback. There's no substitute for in-game reps against defenses like this. And I agree with that too. I mean, listen, we said before, when the Titans came back and beat the Dolphins on that Monday night game, we said, you know what? That kind of experience right there is going to be great for Will Levis going forward. To be able to do that the way he did, that's something that he will be able to carry with him. So, yes, the experience that Will Levis would get over these last 2 games, yeah, it's important. There is no substitute. Like I said, as great as training camp and preseason and summer workouts and all, as great as that is, there is no substitute for being in the game in an actual meaningful regular season football game against teams who are trying to make the playoffs. There's no substitute for that. So in that way, yes, I see that too. And honestly, having Will Levis back, for us, Titans fans, it does make the game more exciting, for sure. I mean, knowing we still need to lose, but at least there's a reason to get out of bed and tune into the game because you want to see how Levis is going to do. We want him to be the franchise quarterback going forward. He's going to have an opportunity to play. So I think it'll be much more exciting than that Seattle game was. So I expect him to start. I mean, I had thought we wouldn't see him again, but after seeing the clips coming out of practice, hearing what reporters are saying, I expect Will Levis to play against the Houston Texans on Sunday. And again, at least that's more exciting than him not playing. At least you could tune in to watch your franchise quarterback of the future, hopefully. We got some people in the chat here. Titan South says Levis may be our best shot at a Super Bowl in the future. Luke says, have you seen the stat that Flacco has thrown 13 touchdowns and has only played in a couple games? The Titans have thrown 12 all year combined. Yeah, for sure. And it's not just the Titans. There are other teams on that list, too, that Flacco has already beaten. Flacco's already topped him. Luke says you're not getting close to a Super Bowl as long as Vrabel is here. That's definitely a topic of discussion that will rage on. Titan South says the Titans are malfunctioning. We don't know if Vrabel is the problem, the O-line is the problem, or we just lack talent. Well, I mean, it's all a problem right now. I mean, when you're 5-10, everything's a problem. Luke says, look at all these so-called scrubs on other teams balling out. Yeah, I actually just saw Dory Jackson had a pick 6 against the Eagles the other night on Christmas. Anyway, Will Levis is playing, and hey, at least that makes the game more exciting, but I am worried about him getting hurt. And there is another player that maybe on the opposite side of the spectrum. I mean, Will Levis appears to be just getting started. One player might be winding down his Titans career, and I am talking about Derrick Henry. There has been a lot of discussion about Derrick Henry today on Titans Twitter. A lot of Titans fans saying it is time to cut the cord. It is time to walk away. It is time to allow him to go somewhere else. There are some fans who don't want to do that. They want to bring Derrick Henry back. They want him back with the Titans. This is a situation where a lot of things can be true at once. A lot of things can be true at once. A lot of people love Derrick Henry. I love Derrick Henry. I got 2 Derrick Henry jerseys hanging in the closet. I'm looking at them right now. I love Derrick. He's one of my favorite Titans ever. And he has carried this team for the last 5 years. Okay. Derrick's great. Okay. And a lot of people, you know, there's this argument going on today about should we love the team or should there be certain players? You know, people calling you a bad fan if there are certain players on the team that you like more than others. Let me be clear. If you put on a Titans uniform, I'm rooting for you. If you put on a Titans uniform, I am rooting for you to succeed. But I will say, Derrick Henry clearly has been a lot of people's favorite because he's the guy scoring all the touchdowns for the last 5 years. He's the guy having the 99-yard touchdowns, the 94-yard touchdowns, the stiff arms out of the stadium, the trucking people over, beating people to the edge. Like, he's been the star player. Like, if you go to Kansas City, who do you think all their favorite player is on the team? Of course it's Patrick Mahomes. If you go to, Minnesota, of course it's Justin Jefferson. Like, you can't fault people for having their favorites, okay? And a lot of people would hate to see to see the King go play for somebody else next year. They would hate to see him go play for Buffalo or Philly or somebody like that, of course. Just like we hated to see Steve McNair go play for the Ravens. Just like we hate to see A.J. Brown play for the Eagles and Kevin Byard play for the Eagles. Yeah, we hate to see that. These are guys that we came to know and love. They were our guys, and now they're playing for somebody else. It's like watching an ex go be with somebody else at first, It's like, that's weird. Right? But you can also say, man, is it time? Is it time? I mean, he's obviously set to be a free agent. So it's not a matter of trading him. We don't get the right to trade him. He's going to be a free agent. He can go wherever he wants. Now, I do think Derrick Henry is going to want to be paid a certain amount of money that I don't know if anybody else is going to want to pay him. At this point in his career, you know how people are about running backs. People don't like paying running backs. They like paying wide receivers. They like paying quarterbacks, but nobody wants to pay running backs this big money. And Derrick Henry has been one of the more outspoken guys about, hey, running backs need to be paid. They need to be paid just like everybody else. But it's not happening right now. Okay. So I think Derrick Henry is going to try to test the waters. Now, is it a possibility that he could go try and test the waters and not find what he wants and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go back to Tennessee on a team-friendly deal, and I'm just going to ride out the rest of my career in Nashville. I think that's possible. But I do want to say this. Whether he's here next year or not, we have got to learn how to exist without totally depending on Derrick Henry. I've been saying it for a year. And you know what? I think that it comes across like you're being disrespectful to Derrick, but I mean, we've seen that some this year. There have been certain games where it felt like, there have been certain games where Tyjae Spears played more snaps than Derrick Henry this season. We've seen that happen numerous times this year. We have seen them actually try to make an effort to get the ball to Spears, get the ball to Hopkins. We've seen them. It's like they realized after last year, okay, we've got to try to get the ball to somebody else. We can't just have Henry. Now, unfortunately, Traylon Burks has not panned out the way we wanted him to this year, and there have been some disappointing things, but, you know, they've at least tried this season to get yards and points another way. Coincidentally, it's still not working, by the way. We're still not figuring out how to get yards or points. But I think whether he's back next year or not, you cannot have a Henry-centric offense anymore. It's not a knock on him. I'm not saying he can't play a role somewhere. Obviously, you've seen enough of him this year to know that like he can still play, he can still go. But whether he's here or not, you've got to figure out how to update this offense to where we can do it without just handing the ball to him over and over and over. Because he's getting older. There's more tread on the tires. Even when you're a beast like Derrick Henry, there's tread on the tires now. He's been doing it for a while, guys. That's why nobody wants to pay running backs, because by the time they get to 30, 31 years old, you know, it is what it is. I'm going to talk more about this the next couple of weeks, but Luke said, I don't know what happened to this team. We used to be the best team in the red zone, but now whenever we get in the red zone, we go backwards. I'm telling you, dude, the number one reason to me is the offensive line. You know, when you get in the red zone, you've got less room to work, right? When you get in the red zone, the field is now a lot more, it's a lot shorter. You've got 20 or less yards to work with. And I also think, you know, we a lot of times don't have the wide receiver talent to get separation down there. And I think that causes the quarterback to need a little more time to allow these guys to get open, and offensive line just can't give it. I stand by this, and I'll talk about it, especially once the season's over, but the number one reason, to me, I'm not saying there aren't any other reasons. I'm not saying the play calling hasn't been sus at times. I'm not saying that, you know, there's not other areas of the team that are bad, but to me, the number one reason why this team is in the situation it's in is the offensive line. It hinders everything they try to do. Running the ball, throwing the ball, the poor play of the offensive line. And I've seen people on Twitter debating whether we should bring back the center, Aaron Brewer. I think you got to go another direction. I mean, I saw the other day, he's one of the worst pass blocking centers in the league. And you can't go forward with that. When you've got money to work with this offseason, you cannot, you can't bring that back and say that's acceptable. No, that's the reason, the biggest reason we're in the position we're in. We need 2 new tackles and a new center, and maybe a new guard. You can't go forward with that. It hinders everything you try to do. And I'll be fair to Tim Kelly, the offensive coordinator. There have been times where I don't agree with his play calling, but a lot of times there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. Take 2 weeks ago against Houston. I mean, we couldn't run the ball worth the crap because they were blowing us up 5 yards in the backfield. You know, in some cases, yeah, you can say we should have been throwing the ball, but we can't pass protect either. Titan South says, one thing I've noticed is that Levis moves the chains on third down rather than taking a sack like Tannehill. Yeah, I mean, that's been a complaint about Tannehill, you know, all along, is that he holds on to the ball too long. Levis at least can run for his life, which is a necessity behind this offensive line. Luke says, do you think they would consider drafting a receiver, try putting Skoronski at left tackle? I mean, I don't think they'll do that. I think they will draft a tackle and keep Skoronski at left guard, is my gut feeling. I would be interested in trying that. I would be interested in, if you move Skoronski to left tackle, then you might could talk me in to putting Dylan Radins at a guard position. I think they still have high hopes for Nicholas Petit-Frere. I don't, but they do. And so you could try that, but I, I, it's my biggest complaint about Vrabel is that he's stubborn, and it takes forever for him to make changes like that, if at all. I mean, he may never make a change, but if he does, it'll take him forever. Sportacular says that the O-line should have gotten coal in their stocking. Well, it's funny. This is the time of year, Christmas, where a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL will give their offensive line something as a gift. Will Levis got our entire offensive line suitcases. That's hilarious. I know that's probably not what he meant, but it seems like he was saying, pack your bags, boys, because you're all out of town in a couple of weeks. 32-1, Two-Tone Talk Power Rankings. This is based on how I see it. This is based on my opinion, not just on records, not just on who won or lost this week. This is how I see it going into the final 2 weeks of the season. Here we go. The bottom three is the same as last week. No change. You got Washington at 32. They do look better with Jacoby Brissett, but, they still lost like 8 games in a row. 31 to Carolina Panthers again. Carolina, at least, they do look better. They beat Atlanta last week. They were very competitive with Green Bay this week. They are there appears to be some hope for Bryce Young at this point. He's looked, I would say that Packers game the other day was probably his best game of the season. And then at number 30, the Arizona Cardinals, what a dumpster fire. Now, the interesting thing here is the 3 teams here, and I'm going to substitute the Panthers for the Bears because the Bears have the Panthers draft pick. These are 3 teams that you look at and it's like, are they all going to go quarterback in the draft? Because Washington, I was convinced that they were going to try to stick with Sam Howell, but it certainly doesn't look like that now. They've benched him. They've announced that Jacoby Brissett's going to start the last 2 games of the year, and it appears the Commanders will be in the market for a new quarterback. The Bears, who have the Panthers pick, what are they going to do? Will they trade Justin Fields? Will they take a receiver? Will they trade back? What are they going to do? Number 30, the Cardinals. Are they going to move on from Kyler Murray? My gut feeling is yes, but we'll see. But these are 3 teams that could have new quarterbacks. Of course, not counting Carolina. I'm saying Chicago in place of Carolina because they have their draft pick. But that's the bottom 3. Same bottom 3 as last week. Now we move on to the 20s here. Number 29, the Chargers. Obviously, that's a team getting ready to go through a lot of changes this offseason. New head coach, new GM, all of that. And they've got their quarterback, Justin Herbert, so we'll see. But this is a team that you need to win one of these next couple games because they're one of the teams in front of the Titans in the draft right now. So I would definitely like to see the Chargers get a win over these last couple of weeks. Number 28, the Jets. Yeah, same thing with the Jets. You need the Jets the Jets lost last night, so they've got 1 game left, and I think it's against New England. So we'll have to see about the Jets. The Titans are currently ahead of the Jets in the draft, but we'll see. But the Jets, it's going to be they've got all the pieces. They just need their quarterback. Number 27, the Patriots. The Patriots got a big win. The Patriots are another team that, for whatever reason here late in the season, they've actually looked better. They were competitive with Kansas City. They beat Denver the other night. They, for whatever reason, they've looked better. So the Patriots are at 27. They're absolutely going quarterback in the draft, I believe. For 26th, Tennessee Titans. The good guys. What can we say that we haven't already said? Number 25, the Chicago Bears. Bears, I mean, it's an interesting predicament they're in. They're going to have 2 top 10 draft picks most likely, and they're going to have a decision to make. Do you stick with Justin Fields and go get Marvin Harrison? Or do you trade Justin Fields and bring in Caleb Williams or Drake May or somebody like that? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. That'll be a lot of discussion about that coming soon once the season ends. Number 24, the Giants. Giants played hard the other night. I still think Brian DeBoll is a good coach. I mean, he's got these guys playing hard, but you want to talk about a team that's in an interesting position quarterback-wise. They pay Daniel Jones a lot of money. A lot of people are saying that it's a given that the Giants are going to have a new quarterback next year, but it's like they paid Daniel Jones a lot of money to come back and be their quarterback. How do you just move on? Number 23, the Saints. Saints are in a bad position at quarterback too because they paid Derek Carr too much money, and he hasn't looked good. I think the Saints' playoff hopes are pretty much on life support at this point. But the Saints are at 23 on the list after losing to the Rams. Steelers are at 22. I mean, the Steelers' playoff hopes are very much still alive. I look at the Steelers and they're better with Rudolph. I mean, it makes sense. They won with Rudolph on Christmas Eve. I mean, come on. Or Christmas Eve, but they're better with him. But I look at the Steelers and I think that, like, when they look bad, they look really bad. But then sometimes, like, you talk about a team that's just up and down, who can tell? But they were definitely ready to go against the Bengals the other night. They keep their playoff hopes alive. And for everybody that wanted to get rid of Mike Tomlin, I think you're out of your mind. I think Mike Tomlin's a great coach. Number 21, the Vikings. Vikings came up short against Detroit, but, I mean, the Vikings, it's such a shame that Kirk Cousins got hurt. I know that people look at Kirk Cousins and they see just another Ryan Tannehill, but Kirk Cousins is better than Ryan Tannehill, and he was playing really well before he got hurt. If they had him, I mean, dang, they could have had a really solid year. But the ups and downs at quarterback. They had Dobbs, then they have had Mullins. Now they're starting somebody else this weekend. Just hard to win when you're changing out that often, unless you're the Browns. Gregory Walker says, tighten up and love the show. I appreciate you very much, Gregory. Appreciate everybody that watches and listens. Let's move to the other side here. At number 20, we've got the Colts. I tell you what, I actually thought the Colts would win this past week against the Falcons, but, man, they looked awful. They looked terrible. They got whooped. And the only good thing for them is that the Texans and Jags also got whooped. And so, we're still in that three-way tie. They're all 3-8-7. And, I think the Colts play the Texans in Week 18, and that could be an important game. But, well, we'll talk about the other two teams in a second. But the Colts are number 20. Number 19, the Falcons. Falcons keep their playoff hopes alive, but I think, in terms of winning their division, I think the Falcons' playoff hopes are on life support, but they can still grab a wild card. I mean, who knows? And I guess that goes for the Saints too, but Falcons are definitely a better team with Taylor Heineke at quarterback than Desmond Ridder. I think the Ridder ship has sailed right on by, and they could be an interesting team in terms of draft too. Do they go quarterback? They'll probably have anywhere from 10 to 13 pick, and so you could go with a guy like Bo Nix there. We'll see. Number 18, the Denver Broncos. I had the Broncos at 12 last week, but the Broncos, I mean, they're officially done. They, after losing to they could have very much still been alive in the playoff race, but losing to New England the other night, that pretty much seals it. And I just can't believe Sean Payton better hope that he can really bring in a quarterback next year that can take this team to a different level. Because if not, he's going to be the butt of a lot of jokes. Because this guy is coming here. It's very clear he has not liked Russell Wilson from the start. And I know that Russell Wilson, I mean, that's a guy who gets a lot of flack because of his just persona and the way he carries himself. Broncos country, let's ride, like all that stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a guy who has had an amazing career in the NFL, Russell Wilson. He was actually playing, he's had a good season. He's played well. And for Sean Payton to just be yelling at this guy on the sideline, and apparently they asked him weeks ago to renegotiate his contract, and he didn't want to do it, and now, like, they've benched him for the last 2 weeks. They're going with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. Just unbelievable. And so, for any team looking for a quarterback, I mean, Russell Wilson is now an option. Russell Wilson is going to be playing somewhere else next year, and that's an interesting thing, too. I mean, where's he going to end up? Because I think Russell Wilson has been good this year. So, I mean, that could be a good quarterback going somewhere else next year. But, I mean, what a disastrous ending to the season for them. Number 17, the Bengals. Bengals I had at 11 last week. They dropped 17. They're done. I mean, their playoff hopes are kind of finished. Ultimately, it's you know, the carriage turned back into a pumpkin. You know, Jake Browning came in and it looked like it was too good to be true that he could be playing this well, and ultimately it was. I mean, it's kind of reminded me of Josh Dobbs. When Josh Dobbs came in from Minnesota, it was like, oh my gosh, look at this guy. And then eventually it turns back into a pumpkin. And that's what happened with Jake Browning last week. Sucks for the Bengals, because if they had had Joe Burrow, I mean, with all the talent they have, they would have been a contender. But it looks like the Bengals are going to miss the playoffs, and that's something that nobody would have predicted prior to the season. Number 16, the Raiders. The Raiders still have a chance to win their division. If the Chiefs lose out and they win out, they could have a chance. And the Raiders, man, I stand by this. If the Raiders had a quarterback, they would be pretty dangerous. If the Raiders had a quarterback, they would be pretty dangerous, but they don't. So, I mean, they have O'Connell, and he's all right. But, you know, even with Jimmy G, I think they would have been a little, you know, they could have. They've what they did to the Chiefs the other day in Kansas City. Number 15, the Packers. I don't think the Packers are going to make the playoffs, but they're a good middle-of-the-pack team. No pun intended, middle of the pack. I think they're a good middle-of-the-pack team. I mean, they need to get Jordan Love some help this offseason. They don't have a very talented roster around him. Number 14, the Texans. Took one on the chin, but I mean, I'm not going to hold it against them too much. They were without a lot of guys. Without C.J. Stroud, I mean, I knew they were going to get whooped. Case Keenum going against that Browns defense, I knew it was going to be bad, and it was. But now they're getting Stroud back. They're playing the Titans. So we'll see. I mean, I'm very worried about what C.J. Stroud is going to do to whoever is playing defense for the Titans on Sunday, because it's going to be a bunch of guys, you know, like last week, like I said, there were guys making tackles for the Titans last week that I had never even heard of, because we had to put so many guys on IR. We had to fill a roster. We just got guys out there that I don't even know. Number 13, the Jaguars. I mean, looking back at this, I don't know how I didn't move the Jaguars any further down the list. I mean, they look atrocious. If I was going just solely based on the last month, Jacksonville would be down there like close to where the Titans are on this list. I mean, they look lost. They just look lost. And they've got a game coming up this weekend against the Carolina Panthers. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But the Jags, they're melting down every passing week. Number 12, the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are going to make the playoffs. I mean, you know, Pete Carroll has done a phenomenal job. And, you know, the Seahawks could be a scary team for somebody, you know, in the playoffs. They got Geno back. He made some nice throws the other day against Tennessee. And, you know, I think Seattle is likely going to be the 7th seed on the NFC side of things, and kudos to them because I really didn't think they were going to be much of anything. Number 11, the Chiefs. This may be the first time this year that I don't have the Chiefs in the top 10. Your eyes don't deceive you. I've got the Chiefs out of the top 10. They're at number 11. These guys, they look bad. They look bad. They've lost what? They've lost 4 of their last 5. The only one they won was against New England, and it was not by much. I mean, they look out of whack completely. Travis Kelce's throwing his helmet on the sideline. Patrick Mahomes, he ain't Mahoman like he used to. And I know they don't have a lot of talent on the outside, but at some point it's like, dude, you going to be a leader? You're just going to cry about it. Like, this guy is just over there pitching a fit on the sideline. Like, hey, bro, welcome to the NFL. It ain't always peachy and rosy. Sometimes you go on losing streaks. Sometimes you look bad. Figure it out, Mr. Super Bowl MVP. I mean, I think they're still going to win their division. Because over these last weeks, they've got the Raiders, which, no, not the Raiders. They had the Raiders the other day. But they got Cincinnati in Kansas City with Jake Browning. I mean, who knows? And in the last week, I think they got the Chargers. I think. Maybe it's the Broncos. I don't know. Either way, the Chiefs need to just win one of those to lock down their division. And surely, right? If not, the Raiders have a chance. Into the top 10. Number 10, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, look at this. I saw somebody the other day on Twitter that was, what's up, Titans Rossi is in the chat. Good to see you. I saw somebody the other day trying to make a case for Baker Mayfield to be the MVP. And at first I laughed. And I went and looked and watched their little presentation. And by the time it was over, I was about ready to give the MVP to Baker Mayfield. I mean, this guy, good for him, man. Good for him. And this Bucs team, do you remember how bad we all expected them to be? I mean, preseason, we thought the Bucs were going to be terrible. I mean, I was predicting them to have a top 5 draft pick, you know? And now, look at them. I mean, I think they're going to win their division, and I mean, I wouldn't want to play them right now. They're playing well. Number 10. Number 9, how about another team who's come on strong here late in the season? How about the Rams? The Rams, who were a total, like, dead in the water middle of the year. Look at I mean, Matt Stafford is playing some good football right now. I talk about it every week, but, like, this team is going to give somebody problems in the playoffs. I'm telling you. I think right now they would be scheduled to play Detroit in the first round. I mean, I'm telling you. With the inconsistencies that we're seeing from Dallas and Philly and now San Francisco, you better look out for these guys. I'm telling you. You better look out for them. Number 8, as we continue to climb up the top 10 here. Number 8, I'm going with the Cowboys. But, man, has any team fallen off more over the last couple of weeks than the Dallas Cowboys? 2 weeks ago, they beat the crap out of the Eagles, and it was like, whoa, the Cowboys are the team to beat. Dak's the MVP, and they have followed it up with 2 straight losses. They got whooped in the first one, and then they got beat at the end by Miami. Miami, who hadn't beat a team with a winning record all year until this. So, just when you wanted to buy into Dallas, there's Dookie in the bed sheets. Number 7, Cleveland Browns, man. Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year. Joe Flacco, I know they were going to give Comeback Player of the Year to Damar Hamlin, and I get it. But in terms of, like, on-the-field play, Joe Flacco. Dude is sitting on the sideline last night falling asleep because it's past his bedtime. But he's killing it. Joe Flacco off of the couch. With this defense, if Flacco keeps playing like that, I mean, listen, they've got injuries that they need to sort out before the playoffs. But, like, they're probably going to be going on the road to play whoever wins the AFC South. And whoever wins the AFC South, I'm picking Cleveland to beat them. I'm telling you, you do not want to mess around with the Cleveland Browns right now. Number 6, the Eagles. Eagles finally got a win. AJ still ain't happy. AJ Brown, your team's 10-4, 11-4. Probably going to win your division. Could still be the number 1 seed in the NFC, and AJ's mad. Good. Great. Love it. Number 5, the Bills. I wouldn't want to play the Bills right now. Bills look great, and I'm telling you, I still think the Bills can win their division. Do you realize if the Bills win this week and the Dolphins lose, then next week, Bills-Dolphins are going to play each other for the AFC East? People act like it's a foregone conclusion that Miami's taking that division, but Buffalo ain't out of this thing at all. Because you want to know who the Bills need to beat this weekend? The Patriots. Do you think they can beat the Patriots? Because I do. You want to know who the Dolphins are playing this week? The Ravens. Do you think the Dolphins could lose to the Ravens? I sure do. You could have Bills versus Dolphins next week for the East. That would be fun. Number 4, the Lions. The Detroit Lions win their division for the first time in 30 years. Woo! Good for Detroit. And I'm telling you, I mean, the Lions are up and down just like everybody else in the NFC. But when they're on, they're really on. And they, I don't know. I don't know how much I believe in Detroit, but I probably believe in them more than Dallas or Philly right now. Number 3, the Dolphins. Dolphins finally beat a team with a winning record. This was a signature win for them over the Cowboys. And I just have a hard time believing in Tua. I like Tua. I live in the state of Alabama. I know all about Tua. I like Tua. You just never know. You never know. But obviously Tyreek Hill, I mean, you can make a case Tyreek Hill should be the MVP of the league. I don't know. But the Dolphins, this was a nice win for them. Good win for them. And it appears that melting down against the Titans on that Monday night game kind of woke them up a little bit. Number 2, 49ers. Listen, some people are going to say, how could you still have the 49ers this high after they got whooped the other night? Well, here's why. Because if there's anything I've learned in the NFL over the years of being a fan, and especially this season, you don't ever want to be a prisoner of the moment. You don't ever want to look at a team and say, oh, they looked bad this week, they're horrible, let's count them out. Because you know what? That team's probably going to come back next week and look awesome. Okay? And then you're going to feel dumb. Or if a team looks great, you don't want to be too high on them after that because they might come back next week and look horrible. That's what the NFL is now. It is one week to the next. It's craziness. So just because the 49ers and Brock Purdy looked horrible and got whooped the other night, I refuse to be a prisoner of the moment. I'm only going to drop them from 1 to 2. I'm going to need to see them be bad more before I just totally give up on them. And I still think they're the team to beat in the NFC at the end of the day. It's going to come down to Purdy. It's going to come down to Brock Purdy and whether or not he can play well. And then at number 1, easy pick, the Ravens. And I got to give it to the Ravens because the Ravens were not exactly a team that I thought coming into the season was going to be that great. I mean, it was like you were all about the Bills, the Bengals, the Chiefs, but not that I thought the Ravens were going to be bad. It just wasn't like, oh, the Ravens are going to be awesome this year. But man, they are probably the team right now that I would trust the most to get the job done in the playoffs. More so than San Francisco, more so than Miami, more than Dallas or Philly or Detroit or Cleveland or Buffalo. I would trust the Ravens to win the most right now. But they got another, I mean, a huge game this weekend against the Dolphins, and we'll see. Titans Rossi asked if what's the lowest draft pick we can get? The lowest? I mean, if you wanted a low draft pick, you'd have to win out, which would put you at 7-10, which is the same record we had last year. I mean, I think 7-10 got him to number 11 last year, so probably anywhere from 10 to 12, probably where that would land him. And I'm sure the discussion would then change. I don't know what kind of tackle you would get, at that point. Okay, let's make some picks for this weekend, and then we'll get out of here. So, obviously, last night the Browns beat the Jets. Saturday is a good one in the NFC. It's Lions versus Cowboys. Ooh. Now, Dallas is a 5.5-point favorite. Dallas needs to win, man. They are on a 2-game losing streak. Dallas needs to win. But I also think this could be a great statement for Detroit because they've been kind of inconsistent. You just won your division for the first time in 30 years. You follow that up by beating a team that's going to be in the playoffs in Dallas. Hey, that would get people excited about Detroit, and people would really start talking about them. It's in Dallas. I just don't think Dallas is going to lose 3 in a row. I am going with the Cowboys to beat the Lions on Saturday, 27-24. Then we move on to Sunday, New Year's Eve, where it's the big game I just talked about, Dolphins versus Ravens in Baltimore. And I'm going with the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to continue to build on their momentum. They're a 3.5-point favorite. I think it's going to be high scoring. I'm going to go Ravens 38, Dolphins 34. Patriots Bills in Buffalo. Bills are a 14-point favorite. Give me the Bills. 31-17 over the Patriots. Falcons Bears. Falcons clinging to life in a playoff race in Chicago. I'm going to go with the Bears. I'm going to go with the Bears. Low scoring, 17-10. Bears over the Falcons, 17-10. Raiders Colts in Indianapolis. I'm going with the Raiders. I think the Raiders, after what they did against Kansas City, I'm going with the Raiders to beat the Colts 23-14. I think the Raiders are going to go into Indianapolis, and I think they're going to beat them. Panthers Jags. I asked the question on Twitter, is it far-fetched to think that the Carolina Panthers could go into Jacksonville and beat the Jags, who are on, I believe, a 4-game losing streak? Is it far-fetched? I mean, the Panthers, they just beat the Falcons last week. Then they hung in there against Green Bay. Could the Panthers do it? I'm going to say yes. I'm going with the upset special, baby. I'm going with the Carolina by God Panthers over the Jacksonville Dookie Poo Jaguars this Sunday. I'm calling it. I'm calling it Panthers 27, Jaguars 23. Upset special. Panthers beat the Jags Sunday. Remember where you heard it. Rams Giants. I think it's another win for the Rams. I'm going with the Rams beating. Titans need the Giants to win this game for draft position, but I'm going with the Rams 24-10. Cardinals Eagles. This Eagles got to win. I mean, come on. Eagles should win this game, and I think they will. 30-14. Saints Bucks. This is like the last stand for the Saints, and I think they're going to lose. I'm going with the Bucks over the Saints, 21-13. 49ers, Commanders. I'm going to say the 49ers get it back on track and beat Washington 27-7. Steelers, Seahawks. Give me the Seahawks. Give me Geno. Give me Pete Carroll. Give me DK Metcalf. Give me the Seahawks over the Steelers in a close one, 23-20. Bengals, Chiefs. Do I dare go with the upset special again? No. I'm going with Kansas City to pull out an ugly one. Kansas City 20, Cincinnati 12. Chargers, Broncos. Man, the Titans need the Chargers to win this one. The Broncos are playing Stidham. Give me the Chargers. Give me the Chargers over the Broncos. I'll say Chargers 17, Broncos 16. And then last but not least, Packers, Vikings. Give me the Packers 20-17. And last but not least, Titans, Texans. Realistically, I just think the Titans are playing too many, guys we don't even know on defense. I think that offensive line's going to have trouble, even though I don't think Will Anderson's going to play for Houston, but offensive line's going to have trouble. I hope Levis doesn't get killed. I'm going with the Texans. Texans win 24-16. Texans 24, Titans 16. And I think the Titans will jump the Chargers because I picked the Chargers to win. And I think Texans will take a commanding lead in the AFC South. I will be back Monday. Oh, well, when Monday's New Year's Day. Yeah, I'll be back Monday with a little New Year's Day edition of Two Tone Talk. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good time. So be ready for that. This is the Two Tone Talk podcast. We're staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses on the Two Tone by God pod. Thank you guys for joining me. Have a great weekend. Happy New Year, everybody. Tighten up.
Wherever you want to be, feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya, feels like it's picking on me, but trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be. So many people try to get you